Thank you. Good evening and welcome to the District of Sechelt regular meeting of Council. It is Wednesday, April 6th, and it is 7 p.m. I'd like to acknowledge that we are coming to you from the territory of the Sechelt Nation. I believe we need to amend the agenda to add Schedule A to item 12.1. That was sent out late after the agenda was published. Are there any other additions or deletions? No, seeing none. First,
just before you do that, I just have a conflict to declare later on.
Yes. For which item?
For 10.2, I'm going to declare a potential conflict of interest because my partner worked on this development application.
Okay. Any other conflicts of interest in the agenda? All right, I'd look for a motion to adopt the agenda as amended. Moved, seconded, all in favor? Thank you. And then a motion to receive all the staff reports. Moved, seconded, all in favor? Thank you. So we have two delegations with us this evening. The first one is from the Sunshine Coast Association of Responsible Dog Owners. And we have three people with us. We have Patrick Tritchler, who I understand is in person in the gallery. And then we have Nina Miller and Sarah Singarin-Orshansky online. So Patrick, the floor is yours.
Yes, my name is Patrick Tritchler, and I'm a homeowner and a tax-paying resident of Sechelt. I'm also a dog owner and a member of Scrd, which is the Sunshine Coast Association for Responsible Dog Owners. At present time, there are approximately 120 members in this group, which is quite remarkable considering we were only formed less than 8 months ago. More people are joining our group as they become aware, and we are encouraging membership. Our main purpose is to promote the responsibilities that we have as dog owners when we take our dogs to any public space, but particularly when we visit Kanika Park. We want to exercise and play with our canine friends in a safe, well-accessed open area while enjoying the company of other dog owners, many who become our friends. We see each other in the same place every day, usually at the same time. One of our main goals is to treat Kanika Park and everyone who uses it in a respectful manner and to follow the rules. We consider it our responsibility to look after the behavior of our dogs, to clean up their business, and to keep a watchful eye on any dog owner who visits the park, regardless of whether they belong to Scrd or not. If we see a dog dropping that does not belong to our dog, we pick it up anyway. It is one of our goals to make sure that we align our interests with that of the park managers and users. We do not wish to be considered an offbeat self-interest group, but rather a group of socially aware people who realize that one's personal behavior can affect many. We also happen to own and love dogs. Let me address the four main arguments that always come up when the subject of dogs and Kanika Park come together. They are, number one, dog excrement. Number two, wear and tear on the grass surfaces of the fields. Number three, bad behavior either by the dog or the dog's owner. And number four, potential conflict between usage of the park by dog owners and organized sports teams who use the fields for practice or for games. Number one, dog excrement. Lovely subject. I've touched on this issue slightly already. To more reinforce the message of cleaning up your dog's mess by way of friendly group pressure or by our own individual efforts of picking up both our dogs and other dog deposits, the less of a problem this becomes. I'd like to state personally that I'm at the park every day, and I have noticed a big improvement in this regard since our group has formed. We intend to keep the standard up, and if we are allowed to continue using the park for off-leash purposes, the park is already well set up with dog waste dispensers and a number of waste receptacles. These features are appreciated and well used. It's Scrdo's intention to make sure that they remain well used, and we let all dog owners know that they should be using these facilities. However, I cannot sit here tonight and tell you there will never be another instance of an errant dog poop being left on the field. Despite our proposed intention of increased group vigilance and efforts, this situation is just unfortunately bound to occur. Most likely the result of an honest mistake or by an irresponsible owner who either does not care or who could not be bothered to make the effort. I would like to add at this point that the dogs are certainly not the only ones who leave potential messes on the field. Irresponsible park users who do not own dogs also contribute to the litter left behind after sporting games, practices, or otherwise. It's been many a time that I and others have picked up discarded coffee cups, food bags, or empty beer and pop bottles from the field to deposit them in the waste bins. Sadly, rules, bylaws, and a general sense of decorum seem to have no effect on the people who choose to act in this manner. Number 2, wear and tear. This last winter has been a particularly hard one in terms of weather events and cold temperatures. The occurrence of atmospheric rivers has been very hard on all the playing fields and indeed on all the gardens of the Sunshine Coast. The drainage of the playing fields, which in my opinion has always needed improvement, has been extremely hard on the field surfaces and allowed the creation of extremely muddy conditions and pooling water. Recent soccer practices and games with players wearing cleated boots have had a particularly hard impact on the fields. But to blame this damage on the dogs exercising is totally unfair and inaccurate. I have been personally monitoring the condition of the fields all winter and have taken numerous photos of the result of the soccer boot cleat damage done. I'll be happy to share these photos with anyone who wishes to see them. More disturbing has been the occurrence several months ago of willful damage done to Kanika Park by some individual or individuals who drove their vehicles onto the field and created a series of deep rutted tracks known as donuts. This created significant damage to the already poor condition of the lower field. It's also not the first time this has happened. I can recall 2 other times in past years when the same thing has happened. I notified the park supervisor of this occurrence and took photos of the event. Needless to say, this had nothing to do with people exercising the dogs on the field. During normal times and normal weather, dogs running and playing on the field have minimal effect on the turf. There has been an occasion where a dog owner has allowed their pet to dig in the field, creating small holes in the location of the slope separating the upper and lower fields. This is a clear example of what Scrd considers to be unacceptable behavior by the owners of the dog and not taking charge of the dog's behavior. However, it is certainly not a common occurrence, nor something that any responsible dog owner would permit. Scrd does not condone this kind of activity, and if we see it, we will say something to the owner. Again, it is the action of a few uncaring, irresponsible owners that paints all of us dog owners with the same brush. Scrd's intention is to make and keep its members aware of the situation and to stop it if we see anything like this happening. Bad behavior. Just as we can't control the weather or bad drivers, some people are just going to do and act as they please without regard to how their actions will affect the rest of us. What Scrd would like to achieve, even in some small manner, is to raise the level of consciousness for all owners regardless if they belong to our group or not. Every little positive thing we do in society helps, whether it is removing a piece of graffiti or someone else's dog poop, or having a word with a person who is acting inappropriately. It all helps. Turning a blind eye or pretending the problem does not exist does not help. It only makes the problem worse. Number 4, potential use conflict between dog owners and sports users. It's our group's position that organized sports practices and games have first priority. If a field is in use for a soccer game or practice or a baseball game, then the dog owners will take their dogs elsewhere for walking and exercise. Our group does not see this as a problem. The park has a lot invested in the baseball diamonds, the lighting, and field areas for the soccer and baseball players. It's great to see all the activity and the sporting events when they are being played. It's also great to see the park being used by all the sports teams and spectators, a wonderful way to bring us all together in a healthy, positive way. As a father of 2 sons, I can tell you I've spent many hours both coaching and watching my son's teams practice and play, and I've enjoyed every minute of it. As dog owners, we ask only to be able to use the fields when they are not in use for organized sports events. And the reality is that this is most of the time. There are virtually no games and practices in the cold, rainy winter months. There are no games or practices during the early morning hours of the day, but we, as dog owners, are there. It's not an exaggeration to say that we are at the park virtually every day, rain or shine, wind or snow. In terms of actual usage, I would say, using my own estimates and those of other dog owners, that there's usually between 50 to 100 people a day who visit the park with their pets. There are many people who visit the park, not just from Sechelt, but from Gibson's all the way up to Half Moon Bay and beyond. I would argue that this represents a great success story for Kanika Park, and also demonstrates that the taxpayers of our community are getting full value for their hard-earned tax dollars. What would be the point of having such a well-used park by allowing it to remain fallow and unused for most of the time? I can tell you this, it would not be long before we had the geese from the golf course coming over for extended visits. Please believe me when I tell you there is a world of difference between the odd dog turd and vast plains of goose crap. Kanika Park does boast dedicated baseball diamonds and outdoor lighting, but it is also a public park and should be accessible to a wide range of users beyond the sports arena. Kanika Park is a park that the Parks Board and our community in general should be proud of. It is hugely popular with the dog owning community, and there's simply nothing else like it here on the coast or elsewhere. I recently had a conversation with one dog owner who had driven from Sechelt to Nova Scotia with his dog, stopping at many dog parks on his journey. And he assured me there is nothing quite as nice as the one we have here in our own backyard. And I agree with him. What we have and what we have enjoyed for many years is simply irreplaceable. Banning responsible dog owners from using the park for off-leash purposes is not going to solve any of the problems which I have discussed. In fact, there is a potential for these problems to become worse. What we have now is a dedicated group of owners who want to align their interests with all the other groups who use the park and act as an extra set of eyes to keep things right. If you ban us from coming to the park, you will not prevent the bad apples from coming to the park regardless. Currently, there are very few places on the Sunshine Coast which either allow or are suitable for the purposes of off-leash dog exercise. The creation of the new Ebb Tide Dog Park, while certainly a welcome addition and will no doubt be used by some dog owners, is simply not adequate in terms of size, access, or amenities for those of us who have medium and larger dogs and require large, level, open fields for exercise and play. There's inadequate parking, and what parking there is located on a busy street. There is no safe approach for the dog owners who have physical disabilities. The field is not level, nor are there washroom facilities or any kind of overhead shelter for when it is raining. But mainly, the field size is simply too small for medium and large dogs to run and play. Taking an eager 6-month-old Labrador Retriever to Ebb Tide Dog Park would be like taking a bath with your socks and underwear on. You simply won't get the job done. In closing, I would like to express my sincere message to you here on council that this does not have to be a zero-sum game. In other words, in order for one side to win, the other side must lose. We want a solution in which everyone wins and we can all enjoy the park that we have come to know, love, and depend on. In the troubled times that world events are currently showing us, now more than ever, we must look to the process of dialogue and compromise to live in a world of peace and harmony, where we can all enjoy the benefits of living on the Sunshine Coast and the beauty and friendship that Kanika Park offers to us all. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you. Council, any questions or comments? Councillor McLean?
I look to a chair and there's no chair there.
I'm here.
Yeah. Thank you very much for your presentation, as well as for bringing people together around this cause. It's no small feat to gather that many people in that short amount of time. So I can see the passion there. Towards the end of your presentation, you mentioned that there may be compromises available. Mm-hmm. Have you put any thought into what some of those may look like?
Well, there's been a number of suggestions from our group in terms of, I mean, we're certainly open to suggestions, so we have no hard position on this. There's two fields, as we all know. There's the upper field and the lower field, and we're happy to use either one depending on the what's going on with the park, or even part of the field. But, you know, obviously, if there's a baseball game or a soccer game going on, we're just simply not going to use the field. We'll go somewhere else. You know, we've also discussed, and this is all loosely at this point, but we've talked about maybe organizing the odd get together where we can meet as a group and just walk the field, say on a Saturday morning, and just clean things up, you know, and everyone thought that was a great idea. One thought I had would be in terms of perhaps changing the signage on the park when you come. Currently, it's quite a negative message that's placed on that board, and I've always felt that it has the effect of turning, you know, when you have a really negative message, it's just not a good thing. So that's something that perhaps we could discuss in terms of maybe making a more rules of etiquette or something like that, just to get the message across to people. I think the main thing is just communicating to the people that use the park that, look, you know, if you see your dog doing something that's shouldn't be doing, then speak up. And that atmosphere was not present a year or two ago, because I've been going to that park for years. But now that we have this community going on, it's become a you know, a positive thought that we have, all of us have, and that you know, we share stories with each other about maybe talking to a person, because a lot of people come to the park that they may be visitors, or they may be from Gibson's, or they may be from another community, and they don't know who we are. And I just feel that having a group that's sort of based there, we can add to the you know, just to the general well-being of the park. But yes, we're certainly open to suggestions to answer your question. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to ask a question here. You talked about amenities that are at the field. There's washrooms there, overhead shelter. what else would you need, or what else do you use there that, is beneficial to you and the dogs?
Well, one of the concerns that a number of us have are when I have a few friends who have mobility issues.
Mm-hmm.
So they really like Kanika Park because there's lots of parking. It's all level. If you have a walker or even a wheelchair, you can get in it from your car and you can get right onto the field. And then you can also, if it's a hot day or if it's a rainy day, you can have your walker or chair situated where the little picnic table is, and have some kind of shelter.
I lost the sound for some reason. Can you still hear me?
Seems like we lost the telephone, Darnelda.
Yeah, Jen's just re-hooking.
Okay.
Okay, so only you and I can hear each other right now.
Okay. Oh, then in that case, the chair goes over to Brenda. Councillor Rowe.
A 10-minute recess and reconvene at 7:35. Okay.
So we're just on recess if anyone can hear me.
Hi, Mayor, can you hear us?
I can hear you.
You can hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we just got to turn you up real quick here. Okay, try again there, Mayor.
All right, I think Brenda should be ready to chair, because if this happens again, it's over to her.
Oh, right, yep.
Okay, so I have a process question for Joanne. Given we're up and running again, do we need to wait till 7:35, given that we announced 7:35?
Ms. Frank says we don't need to wait. We can carry on.
All right.
So you carry on, and if it happens again, we're going to turn you off, and no, we won't. If it happens again, I'll just take over.
Okay, perfect.
We have lost Councillor Lamb.
Okay. You will still have quorum in the room, though, even for the item 10 point whatever it's going to be. So it'll be fine. Councillor
Joanne
Toth is back in the
here.
room? Yes.
Excuse me just a sec. The fact that we've lost a councillor and we said we were recessing till 7:35, I now am changing and saying I think we should wait and perhaps try to reconnect with Councillor Lamb.
Okay.
Who does that? Can you reconnect with?
Is Jennifer going to reach out to him, or do you want me to reach out to him?
We're doing it from this end. Carrie
Thank
Ann's
you.
here and she's actually doing it right now.
Thank you.
Tom has joined us here in the room.
Councillor Lamb is just setting himself up as far as joining in, but I believe that we're all good here.
All right, so Councillor Toth can turn on his video. There he is. And Councillor Lamb will be joining us. All right. So any further questions for our delegation? Any other questions or comments?
Didn't you have a question?
I did, but I think he answered my question.
I think we were talking about bathrooms.
Yes, amenities. I have its level.
Yeah.
It has.
So my answer was bathrooms are very important, especially as we get older. And
yes. Yes, so I have mobility access, lots of parking, washrooms, overhead shelter, and it's level.
Yeah.
All right.
I appreciate the recap.
Thank you. Councillor Toth?
Thank you. Not so much a question, but just a quick comment. My daughter is in soccer and she's played on those fields and practiced on those fields. And I do appreciate the point that you made about, putting a rule in place is not necessarily going to stop the bad actors. It's the one thing, I mentioned it previously, but it's the one thing that's really giving me pause on, whether we shut this down to off-leash dogs or not. So thank you for raising that point again.
Yeah. I think I just like to reiterate my point that we as a group, which hopefully will continue to grow, really do want to align our interests with everybody else. And I think that having that feeling, having us there on the field is going to be a positive thing, not negative. If you take us out of the picture, as I've said, and I think as you have alluded to, you're still going to get people that show up that really don't care. And at least if we're there and we see it, we can speak to it. So, preventing us from using it as an off leash, I don't see that as improving that situation.
All right. Any other questions or comments? Thank you, Mr. Tritchler. I think you've made your point very eloquently. Thank you very much. We appreciate you being here. I know it sometimes can be a little intimidating coming in front of us. So thank you.
Right. Thank you very much.
So our next delegation is with Sunshine Coast Organized Sports Field Users. And I believe Dean, is it Schutz? Correct. Thank you. Over to you.
Hi, everybody, Mayor and Council. Had some notes, but I think I'm just going to read from my letter that I wrote because it makes sense. All the thought went into that. I wrote it the day that the Canadian men's team qualified for their first World Cup since 1986. I'm writing on behalf of you on well over 1,200 individuals playing organized soccer on the coast. Some 900 who are children and youth with the Youth Soccer Association, 200 in the men's league, 100 in the women's league, and there's also other organized casual group users across the coast. In additional, we have slow pitch here who have 19 teams plus fast pitch that play up there, plus the youth teams as well. Numbers have been much higher in the past and are currently growing again. This is after coming out of COVID and when there hasn't been many games going on. These numbers do not include, we wish to impress upon you the dire need for improved sports field conditions and availability. We are experiencing a critical shortage of open and playable soccer pitches in Sechelt and the coast as a whole. Tonight I'm dressed in my soccer gear, not to impress upon you my soccer lifestyle, but because I have a game right now that started 5 minutes ago that was rescheduled from Sunday because we only had 2 pitches on the coast to play 3 games. So we're playing tonight, our last game of the season, and we've missed a bunch because of field condition. Closing Kanika fields to off-leash dogs and maintaining these facilities as a pet-free, dedicated sports facilities they were intended to be is an important and necessary step towards safer, more reasonably functional fields. The next generation of Canadian soccer stars, as well as our recreational dreamers and lovers of the beautiful game, need your urgent help on this long-standing issue. On a personal level, I've lived in Sechelt since '93, also owned a home and been a taxpayer since '95, and I've been coaching organized soccer and playing here since '95. I've served as president and team rep in the men's league. I've served on the board and as a director of mini soccer for the SCYSA. I've attained the top level coaching certification you can get in the province and coached all levels, including being the only coast team to bring home the provincial cup. Some important relevant history of Kanika playing fields. In the late 1900s or early 2000s, myself as president of the men's league, in partnership with Dave Monroe representing the SCYSA, successfully applied for it and secured $200,000 in funding from the district that was money that was owed from the golf course that was put for any recreational users to apply for, and there were many. We ended up getting the whole sum for soccer towards both improving the existing lower field and building the much needed new second pitch on the adjoining land, which is the upper pitch. In subsequent years, the SCYSA funded the installation of lighting infrastructure, allowing night training games, and softball, baseball contributed also to the more recent lights. So the field was not only intended as sports fields, helped get built by the sports users. As Hackett Park, ball diamonds encroaching well into the soccer pitch and unsuitable for adult play. It's dangerous the way it's built, so we don't use it anymore. Piccadilly pitch is a mini pitch. Kin remains the only full-size soccer pitch in the district. Kin is one of only 2 parks on the coast with lights, and one of the only one that's available for everybody, because Ted Dixon does not make them available for everyone. And that pitch is terrible condition right now too. It's an essential facility. It's the only place kids have to practice. The upper pitch has been closed all year. This is after COVID too, so it's hardly getting used. The lower pitch is open only for youth because it's the only place they have to practice. We've been lucky we've had parks management that have done that over the years, because otherwise we've had nowhere. None of the pitches across the coast are in good shape. It's a critical shortage. Lions Park, way up at the other end, it's nice. Connors, pretty nice. Hackett, terrible right now and not suitable for us. Kin closed all year. Ted Dixon closed all year, both pitches. Cliff Gilker has been closed a good portion of the year. Brothers is closed again right now. Both of those are closed right now. Shirley Macy closes any time a drop of rain falls. Brothers is closed. They're all under stress. It's from a lack of water and overuse. Yes, the fields sit empty sometimes because a grass field can only take so many hours of play. And you overuse them, they can't stand up to it. They don't have proper drainage because they don't have proper funding. They can't take it. Dogs have an additional impact. Dogs in the sports fields, and especially large number of dogs running free, have a definite and demonstrable negative impact on the playing surface of these athletic parks. When groups of dog owners gather together with many dogs racing, playing together off leash on the field, as happens many times a day with different groups of kin, the damaging impact on the playing surface is significant. Pitches with a weak root system from lack of sufficient water during even hotter growing seasons in spring and summer cannot handle the impact. Surface gets ground up quickly to bare soil. Exposed root systems die and the pitch goes from bad to worse. And then closed. Then there are the holes the dogs dig. These damaging and dangerous reappear week in, week out and need to be found and filled prior to every practice and game. Dogs bring and leave sticks all over the pitch, and these also are a safety hazard. Sticks and bits of wood and debris need to be picked up and cleared prior to every game. Dog urine kills the grass. And of course, there's the never-ending piles of poop. Daily it's found on the playing field, along sidelines, along the edge of the parking lot, and in the bushes when you go to look for your balls, you end up encountering it. Prior to every practice, I'd need to walk a grid over a training area and find and pick up numerous piles of other people's dog poop. Of course, it wouldn't always be found until it gets on your shoe or on the balls. And when it is found and picked up, it's not always possible to pick it up cleanly. Prior to every game, we'd have to team walk a grid. All the kids would have to walk a grid across the whole field to mark where the poop is, and then the coaches would go pick it up. It's disgusting, it's unsafe, and no one should be required to do this in order to use a field for the intended use. I would be up there at least 3 days a week for years when I was coaching. I coached 3 different levels of rep all the way through. Took me a long time to find this, but I knew I'd taken some pictures of bags of dog poop. This is one practice. There's 9 or 10 bags of poop there. We'd have to do that all the time. The vast majority of dogs owners are responsible. Those signs have been up there a long time. Groups have got organized, it's waxed and waned. It gets a little better for a bit, and then what happens is more dog users come because they try to get more people behind their cause, and then it just, in the end, it gets worse. I'm a lifelong dog owner, large, small dogs, and I love to let them run free. Most sports users are dog users. They're outdoor type people. So many of us have dogs, and we love it. Thing is, they don't mix. From the park's master plan, athletic park, primary function, which Kanika is designated as, primary function of the athletic park is to provide outdoor recreational facilities that serve the community's needs for active recreation and organized outdoor sport. I might be wrong, but I don't believe the intent of this statement is referring to the active recreation of our dogs. And for the most part, it does get people out, and that's recreation, but dogs can go anywhere and happy anywhere. Field users need sports fields. I don't know how I'm doing for time, so whether I should keep reading or just talk. But one of my main criticisms of how sports fields are treated is they're just there, they're fine. Oh, look, it's empty, it's not getting used. What a waste. If sports fields were treated the same as other recreational facilities, we'd be happy. If you look at it the other way, how sports fields are treated, it's akin to, well, we're only gonna half fill the pool. We're not gonna heat it. Sorry, we don't have a Zamboni. We're not gonna keep the ice totally frozen. That's what we get with sports fields. The grass is too high, there's no water, which is a critical issue. We gotta cut out water elsewhere so we can put it on the sports field so everyone can use it there. That's, where we need to make a change too. We're underserved for those recreational dollars, and I would urge the council to include fields in the cross-government organization of sports fields. I would like to see the school board and all the other governments get together on fields and pool the resources. The Parks Master Plan also says you want to improve and build on current amenities. I agree. Improve the fields we have. They're all unusable, and that's not okay. I really applaud the opening of the new dog park, and I would really love to see another facility somewhere, even if it doesn't have to be grass for dogs, really. It could be anything. I had another picture that I couldn't find when there was light snow on the ground that illustrated perfectly the wear on the pitch by dogs in one morning. There was just ripping around in circles in areas, and that has an impact on the pitches. Pitches are made for sports users. Yes, we wear cleats, and yes, that does have an impact, but that's what they're meant for. Too much play because all the other fields are closed is what makes it worse. If the field had proper turf, you wouldn't see that. Banning the dogs as off-leash has been talked about for as long as I can remember. I was friends with the previous park manager, Perry. I'm friends with Jamie. They've both been pleading, trying to get that to happen for a long time. And you go anywhere else in the Lower Mainland, dogs are not allowed, period, even on leash on most sports fields. They're just two different type of facilities. You can't bring your dog in an ice rink. You can't play with him in the gym. We shouldn't have to put up with the type of stuff that we put up with on fields. It just doesn't mix. As sad as that is, because it looks like a great spot for running dogs, but we need a different spot. This letter, by the way, is signed by all the different user groups. I did send one, but now I have one that's signed, plus the Better Fields Committee, the Youth Soccer Association, the Women's Soccer Association, and all the men's league teams. I would respectfully ask Council to act immediately and permanently declare a ban on off-leash dogs on Kanika athletic fields. Work urgently to find a solution to the unavailability of water to irrigate the sports fields at Kanika during the growing season. This alone would go a long way to building healthy and resilient turf that could withstand the usage so badly required and fairly deserved by coast field users. Healthy community playing fields before lawns, and work with the other levels of government, as I had already mentioned. Bit of a mishmash around in circles there, but that's about it.
Thank you. Thank you for the information. Could you provide us with a copy of that letter?
I sure can. Yep, I did.
Yes,
I did send one on Friday.
Yes. Okay.
So you probably have it.
We have it. Jennifer would know.
If I could add one thing, I was looking over both the recent, the 2005, I think it was, and the 2018 Parks Master Plan. I was sadly disappointed to read in the most recent Park Master Plan, SOFU user groups replied to an invitation to provide input. As I know that issues from field condition and availability have been constant over the years, ranging from moderate to very major concern for soccer groups. I know that there would have been numerous informed people willing and eager to provide input had they been found. It's a shame the invitation to these users was not seized and acted upon, as a shame missing input of this very large user group was not perceived and obtained. I guess there was a 3-month period of consultation. There was an invitation that went out to all the user groups, and I didn't hear about it. I was coaching at the time. I do think the authors of that report were remiss and made a mistake in not hunting down these very large user groups to find information. And aside that, the conclusion that they gave, because there was no input from them, was that sports fields were a low priority at present, which is just wrong. And I think that was a grave error putting that in the report, just based that no one responded to them. And these are all volunteers, and having done the Youth Soccer Association, you often have 12 people on the board, 3 who are doing everything, and it's a lot of work. Same with running any team and the men's league. So,
all right, thank you. Thank you for that. Council, any questions? Questions or comments? Councillor McLean?
I did it again. So I believe in Seashell we have 3 sports fields. We have Kinnickinnick, Piccadilly, and Hackett Park. I believe you mentioned that Piccadilly is too small for men's soccer.
It's a mini field. Yeah,
it's a mini field.
It's too small. It only plays up to U12.
Okay. And then moving on to Hackett, you said it's not appropriate for men's, but could be for younger.
Again, it's not a full-size pitch, so you shouldn't be playing any full-size game, which is U13 and up.
Okay. So in the district of Seashell, the only full-size field are at Kinnickinnick.
Correct.
Thank you.
And they're the only grass fields available to the general public with lights on the entire coast. There's a gravel pitch, a small gravel area in Gibson's, and there's Ted Dixon.
Any other questions or comments? I do know that our staff they want the fields to be in good shape too, right? And the lack of water over the last few years has really played havoc with them. They spend the winter trying to bring them back to some kind of condition, and then just when they're at a place where they're starting to show promise, then we stop watering them. So, and then they go downhill. So, I mean, it's a frustration on all parts, and hopefully, fingers crossed, the water won't be an issue this year with the new well that's coming on board in the SCRD, right? So that will allow us to at least maintain them through the year.
I would love to see if there's any way that when allotting for water, if the fields could be given more priority, like cut off lawns earlier, so that the communal lawns have a better chance of survival. Like over the last year, grass can go dormant, but when it dies, it's dead. And that's what we got here.
Mhm. All right, Council, any other questions? Sorry, go ahead.
Could I add one other thing? Squamish this coming weekend is having a soccer tournament. Every hotel, and they obviously have a lot more hotels than us, is sold out. We can't have tournaments here because we don't have the facilities, but they bring a lot of people. You fill all the restaurants, all the accommodations. We can't do that here. We don't even have the rep teams. The rep teams now, they can only play at decent pitch. They only can play their games in the first few weeks of the year, and then they're playing all their games away because there's no facilities here. That's kind of outrageous, honestly. They have to travel to Surrey when that Surrey team should be coming here. It's really hard on everyone. That's part of the reason for declining enrollment in that program. They deserve better.
All right. Councilor,
I don't know
any
if
other
there's
questions or
time for
comments?
ball to talk, but the softball is here as well.
I think we've kind of got the picture. I think this is not a new conversation. It's been around for a while, and one of the biggest issues that we had was with regards to the water in the last few years, to be able to actually start looking at addressing the various levels that are required for the different types of teams that are playing. And I think that conversation will probably start up between the governments very shortly to start looking at how do we rate the fields, including the school district. So that conversation has not started, but it is something that we'd like to see move forward. So we're on the same page as you with regards to that. We recognize the need for different levels of maintenance on the fields. Councillor Todd.
Thank you. I just wanted to add on that the local governments are looking at shared equipment and the things that we can purchase to start working on those field conditions. Obviously water is a huge part of it, but overseeding, aerating, all of that other equipment, we're starting to make some inroads on that. So.
Any other questions or comments at this point? All right, thank you for your presentation. I hope you win your game tonight. Hope you get to play and hope you win.
I hope I make it.
Yes, if you make it. All right. I think and please make sure that we have that latest version of your letter. Thank you. All right, I think this is something that council is going to want to take away and do some more research on before we make a decision going forward. I think we've got both sides, but I think there's probably some more information that we're going to probably get from staff. Is there anything council would like to move forward at this point? Seeing nothing, let's move on to proclamations. Item 4.1 on page 8. This is for National Volunteer Week, April 24th to 30th, 2022. So whereas the empathy, compassion, and generosity of volunteers creates connected communities and builds a stronger Canada. And whereas the theme for 2022, volunteering is empathy in action, affirms the strong connection between volunteerism and empathy. And whereas this profoundly human connection is at the heart of healthier individuals and stronger communities, and whereas empathy is a quality that can help people relate to others and build awareness around different experiences, and volunteering can help us develop empathy to see the world through the eyes of others. And whereas volunteering, putting empathy into action, can build communities where people feel happier, healthier, and more welcome, creating a stronger, more connected Canada. Now, therefore, I, Darnell Seegers, on behalf of the District of Sechelt Council, do hereby proclaim that the week of April 24th to 30th, 2022 shall be known as National Volunteer Week in the District of Sechelt. Moving on to adoption of the minutes of previous council meetings. Minutes of the 7 p.m. regular council meeting of March 16th, 2022. This is for adoption, item 5.1. Any errors or omissions in these minutes? Seeing none, I'd look for a motion to adopt as presented. Moved and seconded, all in favor? Thank you. Is Councillor Lamb set up on the, he's in the room, right, with you? Okay, perfect. I just can't see him. Item 5.2, minutes of the 3:30 p.m. regular council meeting of March 23rd, 2022 for adoption. Someone like to move adoption? Moved, seconded, all in favor? Thank you. Any business arising from the minutes? Seeing none, let's move on to item 8.1A. This will be our chief building official fees and charges bylaw amendment, bylaw number 575-6, 2022. Mr. Nias, over to you.
Thank you very much, Mayor. The district is in the process of a full launch of the Cloud Permit online building permit system and digital plan review. In order to allow for a complete application process to take place online, including not only the application fee, but the permit fee and required deposits, finance staff have raised the amount of credit card transactions that can be made through our POS vendor to $10,000. This will be able to cover most single family permit applications, fees, and deposits. Excuse me. The credit card companies can take as much as 5% of the transaction amount due to rewards programs and things like that. And this would also be on the deposits that upon completion of the building permit would be expected to be refunded in total, providing there's no damage to city infrastructure, but not less the credit card fees. The fees and charges bylaw amendment for your consideration will cover the loss to the district by allowing credit card transactions. Staff believe that the building permit applicants can recoup the increase through no longer having to pay for printed copies of plans, commuting to or couriering them to register professionals for their seals and signatures, and not having to come to the district hall to present the building permit application in person. In discussion with the manager of municipal construction and infrastructure renewal, staff noted a shortcoming in the deposits taken for the securities for damage to city infrastructure, such as sidewalks, roads, and boulevards. The proposed bylaw amendment intends to raise those securities to a level that is more representative of the actual costs that the district would incur replacing damaged infrastructure. As part of the smoothing process for our clients, staff recommend that owners or contractors photograph any existing damage before construction commences and present dated copies of the photographs to the building official for reference later upon completion of the permit. The fees for plumbing and sprinklers have had their language cleaned up and in some cases raised to be more representative of the actual time required on the part of the building official to review and inspect them. And I'm available for any questions.
Thank you. Council, any questions or comments? No questions or comments. There are a couple of recommendations on page, to get back there, page 17. Councillor Toth, like to make that recommendation?
I will move recommendation 2, that fees and charges bylaw amendment, bylaw number 575-6, 2022 be given first, second, and third reading.
Is there seconded for the recommendation? Seconded. All those in favor? Thank you. And I take it Councillor Lamb also did that? All right, if we look to the actual bylaw, that 8.1B, and we're looking for first, second, and third reading. This is the District of Sechelt bylaw number 575-6, 2022, a bylaw to establish building permit fees and charges for the District of Sechelt. And I look for someone to move first reading. Moved and seconded, all in favor? Thank you. District of Sechelt bylaw number 575-6, 2022, a bylaw to establish building permit fees and charges for the District of Sechelt, and someone to move second reading. Moved, seconded, all in favor? Thank you. Okay. District of Sechelt bylaw number 575-6, 2022, a bylaw to establish building permit fees and charges for the District of Sechelt. Someone to move third reading, please. Moved and seconded, all in favor. Thank you. I saw Councillor Lamb's arm come in there on the side. Councillor Kuster, okay. Wow. All right, we'll move on to item 8.2A. This is from the Director of Financial Services with regard to septage disposal fees amendment bylaw number 483-5, 2022. And I guess it's Ms. Smith.
Thank you.
Computer, turn it off. It's on.
I'll present, okay? Thank you. Sorry about that. Make everyone deaf. The purpose of this report is to recommend council to adopt the District of Sechelt disposal fee bylaw number 4835, 2022. At the March 16th regular meeting, council gave first, second, and third reading of the septage disposal fee bylaw, and it would be appropriate tonight to proceed with adoption.
Thank you. Councillor Scott.
Yeah, I'll move a recommendation to the council proceed with adoption of the District of Sechelt septage disposal fees amendment bylaw 483-5, 2022.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for the recommendation? Seconded. All those in favor? Thank you. Okay. Moving to 8.2B on page 30. This is District of Sechelt bylaw number 483-5, 2022. Sorry. A bylaw to amend District of Sechelt septage disposal fees bylaw number 483, 2009. I look for someone to move adoption. Moved and seconded, all in favor. Thank you. Okay. Yeah. No new business. We'll move on to item 10.1. This is Sunshine Coast drag racing event approval report. Director of Engineering and Operations. Over to you.
Just yes, Your Worship, basic report. Nothing much more to add. Hopefully it's a boring report that will calm everybody down here. But we met with the drag racers over operational issues, and it was a very productive meeting. And we were able to come to some agreement on some of the concerns we had around operational matters. We were able to walk the new runway. We were able to check out the north access road, and they were able to work with that north access. So based on what we heard at that meeting, and much of which is captured in the report, we think there's not that much risk to the infrastructure from having 3 events this summer. So if council approves, then the Sunshine Coast Drag Racing Association can go ahead and start planning their events.
Thank you. Councillor Toth.
Thank you. Almost all my questions were answered in the report. The one thing that I don't see or don't note in the report was confirmation that it would be okay to continue with the drag racing under the lease that we have with the province. I'm just wondering if we've heard back on that yet.
So based on my reading of what we have, and it should be fine. I don't think the primary purpose of the airport is still an airport, and this is just an accessory usage of that. So that doesn't stop it from being an airport. It's still an airport 99.9% of the time. So under that, we believe it's okay to continue this drag race usage, and it wouldn't be in contravention of the lease. I believe I saw the corporate officer's camera turn on, so she might have some additional information to share on that subject. Thank you.
To just add to Mr. Dillon's comments, what was still pending was that we would check with the province before we did any improvements to the airport in the future to accommodate future track, but for now we're fine. And at such time that we're ready and we kind of know what the plans are, we can follow up with the province on the improvements aspect. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, Councillor Toth?
No other questions. I just wasn't seeing anybody reaching for a microphone. So I'll move recommendation 2, that council approve 3 drag racing events at the Seashelt Airport for summer 2022.
And that's been seconded. All right, seeing no further questions or comments, all those in favor? All right, thank you. Moving, Councillor McLean would like to lead for this item. And has he removed himself? All right, moving on to item 10.2 then. This is petition for new sewer service area for Havey's Road. This is of our development planning manager and corporate officer. I believe we also have engineering staff here to answer questions. Mr. Hall, over to you.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I don't have a PowerPoint presentation, but I can just kind of summarize what we have here and then open the floor to questions. We have a proposed 100-lot subdivision on a property between Nesman and Havey's. They're proposing to extend the sewer system in order to access a lower minimum lot size under the current zoning that only is allowed when connected to the municipal sewer system. So the process is for them to, in advance of the district doing any sewer expansions here, they can petition the local government to create a new sewer service area or to amend an existing sewer service area. In this case, we're looking at creating a new sewer service area that would apply just to this property in the future lots that would be created by subdivision if it was approved. And part of that process is for them to calculate out the costs of the infrastructure involved and the maintenance and sort of life cycle costs to ensure that the properties involved in the sewer service area could pay for those costs and that the cost would be reasonable on a per lot per year basis. So the applicant has done their cost based on sort of industry average benchmarks, and staff from engineering have done our own in-house calculations based on sort of historical and operational WRC data. So that's why the costs mentioned in the staff report have a slight difference there, but otherwise both are still reasonable in terms of the per lot per year basis. If council endorses the petition tonight, then there's a further process to undertake to create the sewer service bylaw, and there's a required notification process, etc., that would be undertaken. But if there are any questions, please let me know. And we also have engineering staff here available.
Thank you. Councillor Toth.
Thank you. I will do my best to try and figure out all the questions that I had. I was hoping Councillor McLean was actually going to stay to speak to some of this. The numbers that are being proposed here, the petition letter states 920, and our staff figured 1,065. That 1,065, is that the cost to service this particular area? Or are we really looking at the fact that our sewer user fees are too low across the district?
Yeah, I can speak to that. Thank you for the question. So the cost that I looked at was our actual operations and maintenance cost that we paid for 2022, projected over our process sewer volumes for the year, and then based it on the 100 lots. So they have approximately 3 times the infrastructure that the remainder of most houses have, or most sewer connections in Seashelt. So their collection fee and their capital reserve portions have been multiplied by 3. So they're based on our actual operations and maintenance costs.
So I'm going to ask a follow-up while you're finding your next question. So from your answer, does this also then contribute to building additional capacity should we need that? You've got the capital piece in there as well?
So this collects 3 times what we're collecting now for the capital reserve. So some of that could be for collection, some of that could be for the WRC. At which time that we decide to increase either our user fees, these would be increased as well based on what numbers we come up with. And we're also, of course, looking at the future of our DCC bylaw as well to collect funding and perhaps other mechanisms. But in terms of the tax portion, we're collecting about 3 times for the capital reserve for any capital works.
Thank you. Councillor Tom?
Yeah, recognizing that the developer is going to be, I assume the developer is going to be the one building the infrastructure to get sewer out there. Will we still be collecting any DCCs on this development? Or is it a full waiver or credit, or how does that component of it work?
No, they would still be required to pay development cost charges for their subdivision. I think there's a slight variation on the amount of DCCs when you're outside an existing sewer service area, but otherwise, I think all the other DCC charges remain the same. So yeah, they're definitely paying DCCs for all the new lots being created.
Councillor Toyle, anything else?
I guess I'll keep going. Have staff done an in-depth sort of calculation or estimation or forecasting on what this connection will result in for the WRC? You know, we did have the atmospheric river that pushed us to the limit of our treatment capacity. I'm just wondering, you know, what are we looking at for additional volume from this 100 lots?
So you could base that on 100 lots, and we have a little over 3,000 connections now. So it would be about a 3% increase in flows. And I think that's certainly within reason of adding to the WRC at this time.
I don't know if Councillor Lamb has any questions. I can't see if he's going to ask anything. Councillor Toth, go ahead.
Yeah, and then finally, I note in the letter they do talk about properties in Selma Park being able to connect to this. Is that going to be based on a latecomers agreement? Who manages that? Do we? Does the developer? Yeah, just a little bit more about the process.
Sure. I mean, I guess there's a few components there. I mean, they would be eligible for a latecomers agreement based on infrastructure they're putting in, both the sewer extension in terms of excess capacity, as well as potentially some of their works along Nesman and Havies if they're going beyond what their default frontage works be. In terms of other users connecting to the sewer system in the future, that would be up to a few things. One, you know, for the district to expand that new sewer service area to other properties, and having to go through the process and getting assent from the property owners, or other property owners could come on their own, like these owners have, and petition the district to join the new sewer system. So there's a few options for it. In this case, I mean, this development is somewhat out of sequence from the district having a plan in place approved to expand sewer into this area. There's certainly work that has been done on that project, but nothing has been kind of finalized or approved in place as far as I'm aware. But certainly if it goes ahead, it sets the stage for considering expansions to the rest of the area, but that's either driven by individual property owners petitioning the district or the district expanding the system on its own.
Councillor Scott?
Has the discussion taken place with the property that the nation's developing at Selma Park as far as tying in, or does our sewer infrastructure get out that far right now?
I believe their plan is to construct sewer out to there. Our hopes was to have a discussion with the sewer commission, which hasn't occurred yet with that group, but that's something that still needs to happen in terms of their connection.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Toth?
Thank you, which I guess to follow on that question, this pipe is obviously going to be sized for the 100 lots and potentially some lots along the way. are we going to require any amount of upsizing for, I don't know, a 50-lot subdivision that might come up on an adjacent street on Nestman or further growth in the Selma Park area? Or will future developers have to possibly construct an entire additional sewer line into the downtown?
So this line has actually been sized for the build out of that area. So when new sewer areas are added, the capacity is adequate.
Okay, so our staff, like probably you and other engineers in the district, will be working with them on the requirements, because this would be something that they would build, but then we'd need to take over, right?
That's correct.
Okay. So they're going to have to provide drawings and all of those kinds of things to us for all of this work that's going to be done. Okay, and that would be down the road if all of this stuff goes ahead. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, it would be, it's a part of the subdivision. So where we normally have a servicing agreement for all the sort of frontage works and on-site subdivision works, there would be a second separate servicing agreement for the sewer extension. Still in the same format, taking a security and spelling out what works are being constructed. So that would again have to be signed and bonded for before the subdivision could be approved.
All right, thank you. Councillor Kuster.
It's actually Councillor Lamb that wants to speak.
All right, Councillor Lamb.
Yeah, so I'm just wondering about the petition here now. Is this a petition that allows us, the District of Sechelt, to set aside an area that becomes a sewer collection area, and then a developer would apply? Then the developer could apply to put in a sewage plant. Is that what the general idea of this petition is, or is this petition for them to actually go ahead and start their process?
The petition is required to, at a high level, the sewer service area, either the existing one needs to be amended or we need to create a new one in order to legally provide them sewer service. So in this case, they're petitioning the district to create a new sewer service area that would enable us to provide them the sewer service that would authorize them as part of the other works to construct the sewer extension to serve their property based on the subdivision layout that they're proposing. If that sewer service area wasn't created, they wouldn't be able to access that lower minimum lot size, and they'd be limited to septic systems like other properties. So right now it's just this single property that has the proposed subdivision plan that would be part of the sewer service area.
Okay, so this would be a separate sewer area. Then we would have to look at what happens to the rest of Davis Bay, Selma Park area. And that would be part of the sewer functional plan that we're working on, and all those other plans would come forward.
Yes, ideally all the other sort of plans would be reviewed and approved before we consider how to and when to expand that area.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Toth?
Last one on my notes, I promise. Given that the petition letter stated or calculated 920 per lot, and our staff calculated 1,065, is it open to negotiation with the petitioner, or is it this is our number, take it or leave it, or how does that component work?
Ultimately, I think we would probably default to the more conservative number, our number. We're the ones creating the bylaw and ultimately determining what fees would apply in what fashion. So the process requires the petitioner to have done their homework, to do their calculations, say, here's what we propose, we've costed it out, we think it's reasonable, and do that work. And we had the opportunity, obviously, to review that calculation and based on our own data, provide another number. So we would certainly go with a more conservative estimate based on our actual data. But the fact that they're close enough is just to highlight that it's still a reasonable financial cost on the future lot owners. And obviously, if the system was expanded in future, that cost would potentially go down as more users join the system, even as the system expands.
Mm-hmm. Right. So what you're saying is they came in close because they came at 920, we're at 1,065. They came in at 500 or something, then there would be a bigger issue. But at this point, they're close. We have actual numbers. They didn't. Using the same equations, we do the calculation. We came out to a little higher number. Okay.
Correct.
All right. Council, what would you like to do? First of all, any other questions? Councillor Lamb, do you have any additional questions? Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just, I guess I'm just concerned, you know, with how much more capacity we bring on. You know, we're just looking at, you know, our effluent, how we deal with that, and our different options there. So, you know, I definitely would like to see this project go ahead, just because I know of, you know, septic failures in that area, and it definitely gives you the opportunity to create more building lots, more opportunities, I guess. I guess just, you know, I'm moving forward knowing what the potential for our plant is, and how we're going to deal with the effluent. I just hate to, you know, run into you know, anyways, I guess I'm concerned about making sure we have capacity and how we're dealing with moving ahead. That's all. Just watching out for the future. Thank you.
Ms. Lee, did you want to go into a little more detail of what you mentioned earlier?
Yeah, so I mean, for this particular development at 100 lots, there wouldn't be a significant impact to the WRC. If we're talking about connecting the entire area of Selma Park, Davis Bay, and extending it further out as the functional plan projects, we absolutely need to look to the future and plan for expansion and when that might be and how that might be funded. And then that's something that we're in the process of looking down the road at this time. So in short, to connect this one development, the impacts aren't going to be substantial, but if we are looking at connecting the rest of the area to this line, it's certainly going to play into how we're going to look to expand our capacity in the future, and what we're going to do with the remaining portions of the sewer treatment and the entire system. And that's something we are currently looking at. So this particular development won't have a huge impact, but certainly to expand it any further, as we're talking about, we're going to need to know some of those answers.
And Councillor Lamb, is that sufficient? Okay, good. Councillor Toth?
Thank you. Yeah, just to sort of tag onto that, with future connections that may want to happen, somebody's septic field fails along the highway, and they just determine that, you know, operationally or construction-wise, it's going to be cheaper for them to connect to sewer than it will be to replace their septic field. Does every property that wants to hook up to the sewer line in the future, is it going to require a bylaw amendment for this new service area? Or are we sort of looking at the 100 lots for now, but maybe in the future we can sort of on both sides of the highway make that available to people without bylaw amendments? I'm just, yeah, process-wise.
It would require bylaw amendments. The creating a sewer service area does require the approval of the property owners involved. So in this case, it's one single owner petitioning to join the sewer service area. If we were to amend it in future to add additional owners, they would have to approve of that. I mean, it's depending on whether they're petitioning to join it or the district is looking to expand. I mean, there's the community charter provides the rules over what's required in terms of gaining assent of a sufficient number of people to join the sewer service area, but each time it does require a bylaw amendment. And I would suppose in future too, I mean, with the existing sewer service area, and if this new one is approved, it would be a future district project to look at probably combining them into one in future. But right now, to expand the existing sewer service area to join this property would be more complicated than creating a new sewer service area.
All right, any other questions or comments? Councillor Lamb.
So in the past, if there's a sewer collection area, the residents, if you're not hooked up, you pay a tax. But I think that you would pay a tax because you're in that area. So once we create this area, this petition for this area, then everyone in that area would get a sewer tax. It would be like whatever it is, it's half or whatever it is, but then they start contributing to the Water Resource Center Fund or the Septic Sewer Fund. Is that correct?
Yeah, in this case, the sewer service area would only apply to the subject property. And so if the subdivision was approved and 100 lots go in, then it's only the 100 lots that are paying whatever charges for the sewer service area. So if we assume it's going to be the 1,065, then it's just those 100 lots that are paying that, because those are the only lots that are within the sewer service area at that time.
Councillor Lamb, is that clear to you?
Yeah, it's clear, but we're talking about being able to, once we've put this in, then that other people in the area would be able to connect to it. So
actually,
the reality is,
no, actually, that's not correct. We would have to, as Mr. Hall said, we would have to actually expand the sewer service area before they could be allowed to connect.
And once it's expanded, then those new properties start paying the fees.
Right. And all of that is tied into the whole system. How do we have to expand the Water Resource Center potentially? Right? What do the connections look like? How are we going to go about connecting that? That's all work that is in process. This is kind of jumping the queue. And because of that, we are potentially, if we vote it to move it forward, we're potentially setting up a separate sewer service area just for this property at this point. Nobody else in the area could connect. They would not be allowed to connect because they're not part of the sewer service area. Councillor Lamb?
well, so if anybody else wants to, say if the people on Nessman Road wanted to hook up on Radcliffe or something, would we have to create another area would we have another petition for that area as individual users then?
Potentially other property owners could come together to petition the district to join this new area, or once, those sewer functional plans are in place and adopted, then we would have potentially a plan on how and when to expand to other areas and go through a similar process of doing that. But
at this point, it's just this property. Any other questions? Councillor Lamb, are you okay? You look like you have another question.
Yeah, I'm awesome actually, but I'm just kind of trying to figure out how this, I understand the one property and the 100 users, that's fine, but there's a lot of other properties in that area, and I'm just kind of looking at how to, the thing is, you're going to be back to council in 2 years from now when somebody wants to do a 5-lot subdivision because they want to be part of the sewer connection. So I'm just thinking about making it a bigger area, that's all.
Okay, Councillor Todd?
Thank you. I think speaking to Councillor Lamb's comments, I totally understand where, I understand where you're coming from. That's why I asked about, somebody's septic system fails, what do? But I think in the absence of our liquid waste management plan update and our, Davis Bay sewer functional plan being here and ready for us to go through and look at, I think it's going to have to come back. If somebody wants to do a 5-lot subdivision a couple of years from now, and if for some reason those documents aren't ready, then yeah, they're going to have to come to us, and the staff of the day are going to have to figure that out and see if it works. For us to expand it now for everybody out there, we don't know if we've got plant capacity to do that. We don't even know if we've got support from the neighborhoods to do that, right? So I think that's sort of a critical tipping point, if you will, for this.
All right, so there are some recommendations that staff have put forward on page 36. What would you like to do? Councillor Rowe?
I'll move recommendation 2 that council endorse the petition as proposed, and recommendation 3 that council direct staff to prepare the new sewer service area bylaw and conduct notification as required by the community charter.
Is there a seconder for the recommendations? Seconded? All right. Any further comments or questions before we? Councillor Todd?
Yeah, just a quick one. I am going to vote in favor of this. I'm a little hesitant to vote in favor of this because we don't have that liquid waste management plan and we don't have the Davis Bay sewer functional plan. It's kind of, feels a little bit like piecemealing things. And, we know that eventually we do want to get sewer to Davis Bay and what have you. I hate the idea of just sort of piecemealing it out there, but here we are. There is somebody ready to build a good chunk of it. So we got to move something forward.
Right. Any other questions or comments before we vote on the recommendations on the floor? Seeing no further hands up, all those in favor? Any opposed? Okay, would you like that recorded? Yes? Okay.
Yes, please.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you. All right. Can we have Councillor McLean coming back in? Thank you. We're going to move on to item 10.3. This is from our Deputy Corporate Officer, and this is on prevention of sex trafficking. Ms. Paulson, over to you.
Thank you, Your Worship. So last year, a well-known lobbyist for the prevention of sex trafficking, Kathy Peters, came as a delegation to council, and council passed a resolution that staff should come back with a report on things the District of Sechelt could do to prevent sex trafficking from becoming a business, potentially in an illegal crime in Sechelt. So currently, there is not a prevalence of sexual exploitation that is known, but the intention is with the just looking for the campaign name. The Be Amazing campaign focuses on education and awareness. So the idea is to raise awareness and put some measures in place in advance before a business like that would come to a place like the Sunshine Coast. Kathy Peters outlines a lot of information about the increasing prevalence of sexual exploitation in Canada and in the Lower Mainland and Vancouver Island as well. So those are our close neighbors, and we definitely want to be prepared. So the report outlines the recommendations, but basically there's 3 streams. There's a free course that's provided by the province to combat trafficking in persons. So that would be something that our staff members could participate in and learn what to look for when they're out in the field, looking at different types of businesses. A letter campaign could be initiated to raise awareness in our community across community services, community resources, RCMP, of course, the school district, restorative justice, Vancouver Coastal Health, the Rain City, and as well as advocating to the provincial and federal governments to initiate change related to the criminal code and the human rights legislation as well. And for the district, looking at what some other municipalities in BC have done, namely Port Moody and White Rock are two of the few who have made any changes to their business licensing bylaw, but there's some changes that can happen for business licensing as well to make it difficult for these types of businesses to operate. So those changes, or an example of the changes that could be made are included on page 43 of the agenda. But basically, including definitions to identify which types of businesses where this type of activity has been observed, so that it's on everybody's radar. And some of the important things to note is that we don't want to penalize our good local businesses that are here now. So anybody who had a business license prior to a change in a bylaw like this would be essentially grandfathered in. So they would, every time they renew, they would still abide by the old rules unless there's some change in their good standing. If their good standing lapses for 6 months or more, then they would have to initiate a new business license application that would be subject to the new rules. The businesses that the other municipalities have listed as exempt include those that are regulated by professional associations, so registered massage therapists, doctors, dentists, things like that. Wouldn't have to abide by the changes, but the primary changes that would be recommended potentially would be opening up the requirement to provide information, personal information on any staff working in these types of businesses upon request. So if a local government official, for example, suspected some unusual activity, they would have the right to request information about a person's, status in Canada, their criminal record, and things like that, just to verify who they are and where they are from. There are more details in the report. I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Council, any questions or comments? Councillor Toth.
Thank you. Sounds good. I don't have a ton of questions. I do have, the one question I have is purely procedural. That middle bullet on page 43 that talked about existing businesses and sort of grandfathering things. Through the STR conversations, I was under the impression that we couldn't grandfather businesses if we change our business licensing regulations. So I'm glad we have two corporate officers in the room. But I'd just like a little bit of clarification on that. Thank you.
Certainly, through your worship. And I had also mentioned that we still have Mr. Nias on the line here who has some experience with the implementation of these changes as well. So I'm not sure if our corporate officer wanted to begin through your worship.
Far be it from me to counter anything Ms. Paulson has just said, because I haven't actually done the research on this topic that she has. But generally speaking, you usually cannot grandfather a regulatory bylaw. It's different than a land use bylaw. Every year, people apply or business licenses are renewed every year, and a business license is only active for 1 year. So off the top of my head, my thought is if we made any changes to the bylaw, the person would be applying for a new business license next year, and the current bylaw provisions would be what would be in effect. There can be some workarounds. It depends on exactly how we work the language in, but it wouldn't be called grandfathering, but we might be able to put some provisions in the bylaw that address the good standing of a business and the things that Ms. Polson referred to.
Mr. Nyas, did you have anything further to add?
Just that the 6-month lap tends to deal with land use problems or land use changes. The bylaw in White Rock that I had a hand in bringing forward was reviewed by Lidstone, and Lidstone and Company believe that an interruption in the licensing constituted an end to the privilege of being under an old regulatory body. This is something that we can flesh out further with city solicitors in preparation of such a bylaw if council desires. I would recommend that if we do look at a bylaw, that it is vetted by the city solicitors, given the gravity of what it's attempting to address, and be under scrutiny for any changes that have occurred in the criminal justice system and regulatory framework from the province of British Columbia.
Thank you. Council, any other questions? Councillor McLean.
Yeah, just looking at the ones that may be tricky, and that's the treatment rooms must have a window visible from the reception area. So that's a fixed cost. Just in my perusal of the other conditions, those shouldn't be a large imposition on existing businesses. So I'm not in favor of a grandfathering approach. So maybe when we do go look to draft these, we maybe reconsider those ones that would require those immediate changes and implement some of the other ones. Of this work, I think the most interesting one for me is the training. I think that's something that could be the greatest benefit to our community.
I think what I'm hearing from staff is whether or not anything is grandfathered, and that's not necessarily a term, will depend on the legal impact, right? And that's why the legal review before it comes back to us. Right, any other questions or comments? All right, there are some recommendations on page 41. If you don't have to read them, is there anybody who'd like to move them? Councillor Kuster?
I'll move recommendations 2 through 4.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for the recommendations? Seconded. All right. Any other further questions or comments? All those in favor? Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Paulson. Moving on to item 10.4. I believe this is you as well, and this is with regards to the Sunshine Coast Rotary Club gazebo for Trail Bay Pier.
Thank you, Your Worship. So this is a report that came through the Sunshine Coast Rotary Club. They would like to build a gazebo on the pier. The report references the application they made to the, Journeying Together in Partnership project, which was a compilation of several projects that they were looking for some provincial funding on. I understand they've now found some funding and would like to proceed with this portion of that project.
Okay, before we consider this, I had a meeting, it was 2 weeks ago, on the Trail Bay Pier with Gary Feschuk, Shane Jackson, a number of members from the Rotary Club, and Aaron Joe from Salish Soils. And we talked about what potentially could go on there and some of the potential supports that they have financially for this. And I have put in a request to staff to see if we can find the engineering plans for the Trail Bay Pier, because what is there will determine what has to be done in order to be able to build something. So I know staff are looking for those. Some of them may actually be off site right now, given we're getting some of this stuff scanned. So we haven't located them yet, but Shane Jackson then will be working on putting together some potential designs. That's kind of what we're looking at, but it'll depend on what we can find here. So that's all kind of built into the report that's in front of you. Any questions? Councillor McLean.
Yeah, this all looks good. This was, I guess, my second favorite part of this project originally. Taking down the fence, I think, had a lot of meaning to it. But anyways, I think it's still very worthwhile. The concern I have with it is the public notification process. I just find it odd that a not-for-profit society would be conducting this engagement. So I'd much prefer either we conduct it. We have the mechanisms to reach out to people. We have mailing addresses and so forth, or it's not conducted at all, depending on how important we see that. But I think for them to conduct that public engagement is a bit out of place for a project such as this.
Okay, I think they would be looking at working with the Seashell Nation. And I mean, that was a conversation that happened while we were on Trail Bay Pier as well. It's once a design comes forward, and there may be multiple designs, that there's a recognition that there needs to be some consultation with both sides, right? There's some apartment buildings for that, there, for example, that it may impact their views. So all of those things have to be taken into consideration. So nothing is finalized until consultation happens. Given that the Sunshine Coast Rotary Club is the one proposing to take on making having the project happen, they would be the ones potentially tasked with doing it, but in conjunction with us and with the Seashell Nation. Councillor Todd?
Yeah, I think that the 100-meter notification thing's a little weird too. I wasn't around when the gazebo was built on the Davis Bay Pier, but I wonder if that was done at that time. And then the engineering work seems, I hope we can find those drawings, and I hope it gives the information that we need, because it seems onerous to have a structural engineering review done by the Rotary on this. I seem to recall when this pier was built in the first place, a gazebo out there was one of the things that were being proposed. It just didn't happen in the day. So just a couple of comments.
All right, any other further questions or comments? And how would you like to proceed? Councillor Todd?
I'm going to move recommendation 2A and C and recommendation 3.
Okay, and that's been seconded. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor? All right, and then B, what would you like to do with B? I think we all agree that some kind of consultation has to happen, but Councillor McLean?
Yeah, that was the extent of what I was going to say, is that we can direct Rotary to do a consultation, and the specifics of that can be determined.
Okay. Is that a recommendation?
Yeah, sure. I'm not seeing any people freaking out around that, so I'll move that the District of Seashell requests that the Sunshine Coast Rotary Club conduct a public consultation regarding the Trail Bay gazebo.
All right, is there a seconder for the recommendation? Seconded. Any other questions or comments on that? All those in favor? Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Paulson. Moving on to item 10.5, capital project updates for engineering and operations. Council, any questions or comments? Councillor Todd?
I hate to ask it, but I'm going to ask it anyways. Wharf Avenue sidewalk improvements. ARC permit is expected by April 11th. I'm assuming that since I didn't see any machinery out there today, we haven't already received it. Are staff still fairly confident on April 11th?
Thank you for the question, through your worship. We are cautiously optimistic for that date. So the project manager, Mr. Sanath Bandera, who's our manager of municipal construction, has sent 2 emails directly to the provincial ARC branch person responsible for this. And we have not gotten an acknowledgement or response from that person. But I have additionally gone above that person and reached out to the director of that ARC branch, and they have acknowledged my request and responded. So on that basis, I'm optimistic that it is on the radar and that we will get some sort of amendment to this by the 11th.
Councillor McLean?
Yeah, so if we don't, or we're not on track to hit the May 31st target, what is the decision-making process around extending that or delaying it to next summer? Is that a council decision? Is that something that would be on Director Dillon's desk? Just wondering what the process would be.
Thank you for the question, through your worship again. So we had language in the contract that said we would possibly have to shut down during July and August if it came to that. Given what the ultimate impact of this delay from the archaeology permit is on the overall project, I think we would have to start building the project, see what progress we make at that time, and see what we've done to that point and how disruptive it is to businesses in the area. If it's minor disruptions, then we might be better off just to finish it off if it's another week or 2 weeks of work to do that. If not, we do have provisions to temporarily put a stop to construction and resume it again at a later time when things slow down in terms of the tourist season. And the importance of the timeline of this project has been, it's been relayed to the archaeology branch a couple times. So we've been quite frank with them on that.
Thank you. On page 53, it talks about the operations center. And I'd like to point out to everyone, April 11th, that's next week, we're going to do a sod turning. So if you can make it there, please join us. We have lots of shovels. And that's the council. Come stick a shovel in the ground. Council, anything further on the report? Councillor Lamb?
Yeah, just the chemical storage building at the Water Resource Center. I'm just wondering, is there a space allocated for that? I'm just wondering, I guess in the past when when we've seen this before, it came out and I believe that the building was probably incorrectly placed just for potential future development. So that was just my thoughts on it, where it was placed. So just as we move forward, hopefully we'll have a look at that. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for the question or comment, I should say, through your worship. Conceptually, it was to be a detached, I believe, metal prefabricated building. We have not gone through the design process, but it was supposed to be off the, I guess, east side of the building where they come in through the back access. But in light of the comments, we will factor in future expansion of the facility so that the location of this chemical storage building impinges in the least way possible the future expansion of the WRC.
Any other questions or comments? I'd like to note that this report has grown in the last while. I note there are lots of projects on here that are moving forward. And I think we can thank our new project manager who started for moving some of these forward. So I just want to make it, acknowledge the work that's being done on that part.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll share that feedback with staff.
Perfect. Thank you. I mean, it's noticeable, right? I mean, that good work being done. Anything else? Thank you. We're going to move on to council reports. So we'll start with Councillor Scott and Rowe, Kuster, Lamb, McLean, and Toth. So Councillor Scott.
Nothing to report on my end.
Thank you. Councillor Rowe.
I'm just going to mention that I spent the day with Ms. Smith and the CIP committee adjudicating all the grants. So that's in progress for this year. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Kuster.
What did we do? I had a library board meeting. They had their AGM. Mayor Seegers stepped in for me because I had to work, but I did listen, which was great. We had a intergovernmental meeting the other night, which was great to listen to what was going on with everyone else and do a little bit of collaborating. And then I was at AVICC this past weekend with some of the councillors and Mayor Seegers, and just wanted to mention the tour that we did with Zero Waste, which was amazing to see what Victoria is doing with their food waste. The amount that's not going into landfill that's creating food for, you know, people in their community is amazing. And we also got to see a really neat, they call it unbuild. So they're taking apart an existing building and taking the timber from there, and they will sell that, and it's just another way that stuff doesn't go into the landfill, and was pretty impressed by the whole procedure. So that's it for me.
Thank you. Councillor McLean.
Yeah, thank you. I know it's getting late, but I have a little bit of something I'd like to read off. Today I'm going to announce that I'm not seeking re-election in October. I want to make this announcement today because we're 6 months away from the election, and I'm hoping this announcement will encourage some potential candidates to seriously consider this opportunity to serve our community. Now's the time to start gathering your issues, developing your stances, and understanding how local government works. I'd like to offer myself to any candidate across the Sunshine Coast who has questions whether we agree on things or not. In my mind, the number one requirement for this job is an ability to learn. So if you want to get started on that learning journey, please reach out. It's been an absolute pleasure to serve on this council, to serve the people of Sechelt. It can be a hard job, but the collaborative approach that we took at this table has made it worth it. If I had one word to describe how serving on this council has been, it would be cooperative. With each other, with staff, with other local governments, and with the community. We all work together to make Sechelt a better place to live. I'm most proud of our work to make Sechelt a more walkable and accessible community. Trail Avenue, Wharf Avenue, improvements to Davis Bay and Kanika trails, and the bike lanes in West Porpoise Bay and West Sechelt. All of these projects will promote health, transition us away from car dependence, and provide a safe space for the use of Sechelt to get from place to place. This is how you build a better community, by providing infrastructure that can make us all healthier. But there's also areas of work I'd like to be better. As we near the end of this pandemic, the community is hurting, and we are more disconnected than ever before. Seniors are isolated, people with challenges are left unsupported, and most importantly, people have not been able to come together to effectively solve our community's issues. Provision of social services and community development work needs to be the focus of the next council. My greatest disappointment of this term has been our inability to establish a coast-wide social service funding program. This is a critical need in our community, and it recognizes that we are one community that is deeply connective and supportive of each other. The next SCRD board needs to prioritize the development of a social services grant service. We still have 6 months left in this term, and I remain committed to the role. I believe that it's this council's priority to focus on addressing the housing crisis over the next 6 months. We're going to finish the zoning bylaw revision, approve new rules for short-term rentals. On a personal level, I'll continue to support the Housing Emergency Action Table as they begin to bring on some organizational capacity. I'm also going to push forward the issue of housing affordability and continue to search for community solutions. I'm not leaving this role because my work is complete, or it has proven to be too difficult, or it's not rewarding. There is much more to do, and I would want to be part of it. But right now, I need to think about my long-term personal goals. I need to build a career and strengthen my relationship. To that end, I have planned to move to Vancouver Island. I'm currently working on a master's in community development at UVic, and I intend to build my career in not-for-profit management. I have no plans to run for council on the island, but I'll be certainly using everything I've learned here to build the community over there. Serving on council has been a privilege, and I want to thank everyone here and the people of Seashell for providing me with this opportunity. Seashell, you'll always be home, and I'll be back.
Thank you. Councillor Todd.
Well said, Councillor McLean. I guess I better step up my speech writing game. We've got 192 days until the election, by the way. So, just throwing that out there. Yeah, I attended AVICC in Victoria over this last weekend with a number of the councillors. It's been amazing to get back together with real people in a real setting, catching up with other local elected officials that we may not have had the opportunity to speak to in the last 2 years. A couple of the highlights from that conference include the tour of that food rescue operation. It's run by the Mustard Seed out of Victoria. They have 3 trucks on the road picking up blemished and undesirable food from local grocers. They rescue 8,000 to 12,000 pounds of food every single day, which is redistributed to food banks, eligible nonprofits, and some of it gets processed in one of their 2 commercial kitchens on site into soups, fruit leather, things like that, by a chef that they actually have on staff. They're in the purpose of building a 3rd commercial kitchen, which will be HACCP certified, which will allow somebody to start with raw ingredients and leave the building with a finished, packaged and labeled product that they can sell to grocery stores. It'll be the only certified kitchen to that standard on Vancouver Island. The Unbuilders, they're a company, they specialize in deconstruction and salvage. That tour was really cool. It's been a long time since I've been on a construction site. And the building that they were deconstructing was a Canadian Forces office that was built in the early 1900s. The amount of salvage they estimated was going to be about 200 to 250,000 board feet of old growth fir that they can pull from that building. And the facade is being saved and the property is being redeveloped into market rental apartments. We also got to check out some new garbage recycling compost bins that Victoria is using out on the street. They've been engineered and designed for easy use and to make it more friendly for people to figure out what goes where before they even get to the can. They're also experimenting with a camera system mounted inside the garbage cans that can take photos at certain intervals, allowing them to conduct garbage audits on a regular basis without having to spread the trash out. The system's also able to notify them when cans are full without relying on staff stopping and checking the cans every day or multiple times a day. One of the other sessions that I attended was an update on the housing needs assessments that were done all over the province. I think jurisdictions have until the end of this month to get them in. A lot of very common themes with ours about people being inappropriately housed, regardless of the size of the community. Even community of 500 people had stuff in their housing needs report relating to inappropriately housed folks. An example of a community that was taking some very liberal approaches to their housing and some of the issues that they've been having was Canal Flats, which I'd never heard of before the conference. But they saw their population increase by 30% between the 2016 and the 2021 censuses. So that's really all I have to report right now.
Thank you. Councillor Lamb. Anything for you?
I attended the Chamber of Commerce annual meeting. And anyways, they brought on 6 new directors. And I was kind of disappointed because there was 6 men. And I asked how come there was only six men instead of how come there was no women in mix, and they said, well, we already have 2 women on the board. So anyways, the other thing is John Henderson, I think is, he stepped down as the president now. And, John always leaves you thinking when he leaves. And once again, he comes out with, you should be thinking about innovation and being bold and very, whatever. I think that's something I do every day, try to be innovative and see where I go. But, as a council and, moving forward with your community, being innovative and being bold is a good thing. So anyways, that was my event for 2 weeks there. Thank you.
All right, I'm just going to mention a few things. There were a lot of things over the last couple of weeks. One of the ones that I found really interesting, and I think we probably should have done it way sooner in this term, was a transit workshop at the Sunshine Coast Regional District. So because of the change in, we have different years, right? So it's difficult to figure out when to actually get things in front of them. So that we got a lot of information there, and what we're requesting is that information be part of the orientation going forward. Seashell Chamber has been mentioned. I'll just mention one thing from ABICC, Association of Vancouver Island Coastal Communities. District of Seashell put forward a resolution with regards to medical cannabis, and that was supported by the body at ABICC. So that will go to Union of BC Municipalities this fall for their endorsement and taking it up to the provincial government or federal government. I'm currently not on the coast. I'm currently in Vancouver, in Richmond actually, and I'm attending the Electoral Area Directors Forum. That was yesterday and today, and now I'm doing the Leadership Forum, Local Government Leadership Academy. Some very interesting sessions, and I'll be bringing back information to council. And I believe Councillor McLean's going to be joining me here tomorrow. Okay, so that's all I've got to say right now. I want to say thank you to Councillor Toth, because he's going to be going on TV tomorrow night representing the District of Seashell on the Talk to Your Local Government show. All right, so over to Councillor Toth for his report on the SCRD.
Yeah, Brenda and I had to arm wrestle over who was going on TV tomorrow. And I think she let me win. Not too much to report from the SCRD, which is part of why I didn't have a written report submitted in time. We had adoption of the water rates bylaws and some text changes around watering restrictions and lawn permits. I did touch on that on a previous report. We did a review of the timeline for doing our strategic plan review as a board. And we're going to have one last review, sort of see where things are and try and lay some groundwork for the next board. There was an update to the SCRD FOI process and procedures. There's now a $10 fee for FOIs that aren't pertaining to individual requests, like if a realtor requests information, things like that. We had the 2022 budget process debriefing, including timelines and meeting dates for budget 2023. Budget 2023 is going to start in early December with final adoption by March 23rd. The dates were pushed back to allow for the new board to get up to speed. And that's really all I have SCRD to report.
Thank you. Any questions for Councillor Thomas? Seeing none, let's move on to item 12.1, release of items from closed meeting. Someone like to move, I guess, release. Move. So seconded, all in favor? Thank you. And then on to council correspondence. So a number of items in here. Anything you'd like to address? Item number 7 is a request for a letter of support. And that's for Sunshine Coast Youth Dance Association. They're looking to apply to a number of grants. Okay, Councillor Toth.
I'll move that we provide them a letter of support.
And that's seconded. All those in favor? Thank you. Item number 8 is from the Sunshine Coast Regional District. And I'm just going to pull that up. So there is a report, they're looking at community climate public participation. So the regional district has put together a report on community climate. Like they want to know how we and the community can get involved in dealing with climate action. And there's a request there that, well, they're basically saying they can come and do a presentation for us if we want them to do that. What would you like to do? Sounds like a plan. All right, so that we respond back and request they come and present to us. Okay, is there a seconder for the recommendation? Seconded, all in favor? Thank you. Anything further from any of the correspondence? Okay, do you need a little more time to go through or are we done? A lot of correspondence here today. Sounds like we're done. All right, motion to adjourn. Oh, first of all, sorry. Oh. We missed this. Mr. Yates, are there any emergency items?
No, there are not, Your Worship. Thanks very much.
Thank you. All right, now motion to adjourn. Moved, seconded, all in favor.